Hello, my name is Tori Deal, and this is my museum presentation on Thurgood Marshall. This is the script that's going to explain in more detail who Thurgood Marshall is and what he's done, his accomplishments, and what his goal was within his occupation in life for the things he did accomplish. So my script reads, Hello, my name is Thurgood Marshall. However, at birth my name was Thurgood Marshall, but Thurgood was too long to write, so I shortened my first name to Thurgood. But many of you may know me from the textbooks as Mr. Civil Rights because of my accomplishments as a civil rights lawyer. I was able to win 29 out of the 32 cases that I argued in front of the Supreme Court. Not to brag, well I can brag because this is a museum script about me. Winning a lot of Supreme Court cases wasn't my initial goal, believe it or not. My goal was to help end racial segregation. I would not say by my death in 1993 that I ended racial segregation, for there are still racial injustices now in 2020. But I helped the cause and gave blacks more rights and responsibilities as citizens of the U.S. Knowing the amount of civil rights cases I won, it may be easy to believe that becoming a lawyer and my life in general came easy to me. However, that is far from the truth. To be a good civil rights lawyer, one must face a lack of basic civil rights and a lot of racial injustices. And that I did. I grew up in a segregated high school and a nearly segregated college. At my college, Lincoln University, all the students were black and the faculty white. After I graduated college in 1930, I was denied acceptance into Maryland Law School because the school was still segregated. Just so I could attend another law school, my mom had to pawn off her wedding ring and engagement ring. But don't worry, I made my mama proud by graduating first in my class. By the time I was 30 in 1938, I was the NAACP's chief counsel. My biggest court case accomplishment came in 1954 with the court case of Brown v. Board of Education, where I became a judge on the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. 4 years later, in 1965, LBJ appointed me to the government's chief trial lawyer. Then in 1967, I was the first African American to serve on the Supreme Court. I was also blessed to say I served 24 years on the Supreme Court. So, that's my 84-year life in a nutshell. It's 2020. I hope you've heard of me before you entered this museum and heard my script, but if not, you've experienced the effects of my court cases. If you are listening to this, you probably didn't grow up in a segregated school, vote in all-white primaries, or sit on a segregated bus. So, you're welcome. I know there's still racial injustices in the world today, but imagine what the generations and years to come will do. I was just one man in a segregated country, and look at what I did. I have hope from up above that we will achieve a more racially just world. So, if you didn't know anything about Thurgood Marshall, maybe you learned something. Or if you did know something about Thurgood Marshall, maybe you learned something that you didn't know. So my physical item I chose was a gavel. I inserted a picture because I do not physically have a gavel. But I think this highlights Thurgood Marshall as he was a civil rights lawyer, was the first African American to be on the Supreme Court. And I think a lot of his achievements stem from him being a civil rights lawyer and all the cases he was able to win in the Supreme Court. And these are the text sets I chose. Devil in the Grove, Thurgood, Lift Every Voice and Sing, and The Day They Came to Arrest. I chose these texts with the theme of standing up for what you believe in. And I feel like that's what Thurgood did with his life. I feel like that's what Lift Every Voice and Sing, the poem, embodies. And same with the TED Talks and The Day They Came to Arrest. I chose the nonfiction book, Devil in the Grove, to connect the idea that Thurgood stood up for the injustice and what he believed in, even though it wasn't easy, as this book is about Thurgood and the work he did and the process that it took. And then I'm going to use the fictional text, The Day They Came to Arrest, to show that everyone can stand up for what they believe in. You don't have to be a brilliant lawyer. The character in the book, Barney, challenges the school against the banning of Huckleberry Finn. Barney prints his view about the book, banning and censorship. I really wanted to use this because as you learn about Thurgood and all the accomplishments he had, it may seem out of the students' reach that they could do something of Thurgood's magnitude, but the fictional text, The Day They Came to Rest, shows that even just voicing your opinion can make a difference, and everyone can do that. You don't have to be a lawyer, but just a person who has opinion, and you could make a difference. And then the poem Lift Every Voice and Sing by James Weldon Johnson. I want to use this poem to illustrate to my class that even when life is tough and unfair, we can move forward with our head held high and try to make this world a little more just. This poem illustrates to not lose hope, even in the face of racial injustice. I feel like that really just ties everything together, because Thurgood had a goal to make this world more racially just. And even though he faced racial injustice, he did not let that get him down or stop him, but he tried to move forward and progress this nation to a nation he wanted to see and live in. And I think that's important to pay attention to this side of hope that is in this poem, Lift Every Voice and Sing, and the hope that Thurgood had to have with all the hard decisions and cases he was having to work with. And then the biography book I chose, Thurgood. I would use this book to illustrate how Thurgood Marshall stood up for equality while in the face of racism for a majority of his life. Because something I talked about in my museum script was that Thurgood did accomplish a lot in his life, but his life wasn't easy. To get where he got took a lot of work, effort, time, energy, money, and it probably would have been a lot easier for him to take an easier route or to settle, but he didn't. He just kept moving and did what he knew was right, and it wasn't easy, but I believe it paid off for him in the end. And I mean, we're learning about him now, so he definitely made a difference. And then the TED Talks I watched was called On Humanity. And I would use this TED Talks to teach my class that their decisions and actions are worthy. What my students do or don't do make a change and difference. The TED Talks focuses on the simple, little compassionate actions that make the biggest difference. I feel like this TED Talks highlights that my theme that my students can make a difference and make a change, just like the book, The Day They Came to Rest. It's the small, everyday actions. It's the students standing up for someone who they may not be friends with or who they are friends with, standing up for the underdog, standing up for someone who feels voiceless, just making good decisions in the situations they're in. They don't have to be a big-time lawyer. They don't have to be a doctor or some person they feel that is unattainable, but just the actions they make every single day make a difference. And I feel like that's something I would really highlight with these text sets, because when we study these people who have all of these accomplishments, they can seem like unattainable, so far out of our students' reach, that we need to give our students the tools and knowledge to know that they are capable and they can make a difference wherever they are at, whatever city they're at, grade, age, wherever their background is, they can make a difference and change just by their daily actions. And that, yes, these people did extraordinary things, and we will study them because they did extraordinary things, and they're someone we can look up to in times when we need change. But also, change happens in our everyday lives, in the mundane things, in the conversations we have, and I would really want to highlight that to my students. And this is my flow chart, and this is I read from this whenever I was explaining how I would connect the text, and it highlights my theme of standing up for what you believe in, and anyone can make a difference. And that is the end of my museum script. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and learned a little bit more about Thurgood Marshall, and hopefully I'll be able to use these books and this idea one day in my classroom. Thank you.